You're listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks, your source for centered and focused play therapy coaching.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Podcast where you get a masterclass in child-centered play therapy and practical support and application for your work with children and their families. In today's episode, we are continuing with the Art of the Session series. And this specifically today is on the I wonder statement and the whisper technique. And so we've been talking about at any given moment in any session, we can choose one of 11 responses according to what's happening. And the whisper and wonder techniques are similar. So I'm going to cover them in the same episode, I suppose, but they actually do serve a little bit of a different purpose. We'll talk through each of those. But again, this is a simple process. I'm hopeful that this series is helping you feel very grounded in the fact that when you are in a session, there's never a moment where you go rogue. There's never a moment where you start saying random things. You have 11 or so things that you're going to default to because they are adherent and they are skillful. And whisper and wonder techniques are one of those things. So that's where we're going today. Reminder, I know many of you already have. I'm very excited. If you're going to be in Houston, please RSVP for the meetup. That is specifically for podcast and collective members. So that's kind of an exclusive meetup. It's not open to the public, and it's going to be just for us to hang out and spend time together. So if you are going to be in Houston for the conference in October, please RSVP. It will take place on the 11th at 7 p.m. and really close to the conference hotel. So the link below will give you the opportunity to RSVP. It's free. I just need to know how many of you all are coming. We have some things we're going to give away and stuff like that. So I just need a head count. All right. So also related aside, housekeeping option number 2. Many of you all know that I wrote the book Device Detox 5 years ago. I'm actually probably going to need to do a second edition pretty soon because technology has changed and there's new data and research emerging. And so we've kind of been tossing the idea around of a second edition. But I was in Barnes & Noble pretty recently. Our son we all love to read, but our son specifically. And pretty much if we are out anywhere, he is looking for a Barnes & Noble. And so we were in one pretty recently. And I came across a book by Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, and maybe Haidt, but I'm thinking Haidt. Anyway, Jonathan Haidt or Haidt, and it's called The Anxious Generation. And I took a photo of it in the store. I did not buy it or read it yet, but I just want to read you the subtitle of this book because this is what we face as CCPTs. This is what we face as clinicians who specialize in working with children. The book is called The Anxious Generation, and here's the subtitle: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. And if that doesn't make us angry, and if that doesn't make us broken and burdened for this generation of kids, I don't know what would. It's causing an epidemic of mental illness, the amount of screens that kids are being exposed to and being given access to. Unfiltered, unmonitored, unfettered, and it is creating an anxious generation. So I know nothing about the book as far as like the content of it. I just saw the cover and I took a photo of it. And then one of my actual therapists just texted me this morning and said, I started reading The Anxious Generation and I was thinking about you and your book. So I just want you all to be aware. This is a fight and a battle that is worth waging. And this is something we need to be having very intentional conversations with parents about. We need to be advocating for kids. We need to be talking about reduction of screen use. This is a real thing. And if you are not familiar with the data that has emerged about how damaging and concerning over screen use is for children, you need to educate yourself and you need to start making this a part of your parent consultation process. And you need to be asking how many hours each day kids are on screens, and you need to be helping them get that down to a healthy level. So just wanted to kind of do a little public service announcement about that, something I'm really passionate about and have been for a long time. Okay, so let's dive into whisper and wonder techniques. So I want to look at each one individually, and then we'll kind of talk about how you can use them in conjunction, because I am notorious for fusing them together. We know that questions put children in their heads and they live in their hearts. So we don't want to ask questions. We know that one of the rules of thumb is if you know enough to ask a question, you know enough to make a statement. So not only are we constantly trying to phrase everything in statement form in the playroom, because if we know enough to ask a question, we can certainly make a statement, but we also want to avoid asking questions because it takes kids out of their experience and their emotions. So with those two concepts in mind, one of the things that we sometimes have to do is phrase a request for information, not in a question form. So that's where the I wonder statement comes in. So essentially, instead of asking the question, you can wonder. But here's the rub, y'all. I watch these sessions all the time in my coaching program. And what happens is we use I wonder statements as a substitute for just blanketly asking questions. So, oh, I wonder what you're going to do next. Oh, I wonder how you're going to make that tower. Oh, I wonder what happened at school today. I wonder what you ate for lunch. I wonder if you talked to mom about your referral at school. We just substitute interrogating children with I wonder statements. That is not the intention. That is not the application. That is not what they are meant to be. It's not a replacement for questions. We don't need to ask questions in a playroom. We don't need to know what they're going to do next in the playroom. We don't need to know what they're going to create. We don't need to know what happened at school. All of that is irrelevant information in a CCPT session. But there are times in session where we need clinically necessary, clinically relevant information. That's when we use an I wonder statement. So let me make sense of that for you. In other words, kid says, you have to be the pirate and I'm going to be the treasure hunter, and we both are trying to find the money. Now, one technique and strategy is to reflect content and wait. But even when we do that, sometimes we're not given any more cues. So therefore, we wonder. So when the kid goes, okay, be the pirate. I wonder what the pirate does. This is a clinically necessary wonder because I can't just start talking like a pirate. I can't close one eye. I can't pretend there's a parrot on my shoulder. I can't start saying walk the plank. I don't know what this child has in mind for me assuming the role of a pirate. So it is clinically necessary information for me to be given a directive. So I wonder what the pirate does. Oh, the pirate has to. Then you get the necessary information that you need. Then you are able to assume the role that you've been asked to play. You reserve I wonder statements for those moments where you need clinical information. When you're asked to do something, say something, play a role, participate and engage in play, if you're not sure what that looks like, you wonder. Now, let me break down I wonder a little bit more. Wondering does not necessitate a response. So you can wonder out loud and a child can ignore you. It is not a guarantee that you're going to get any kind of response when you wonder. But most often, if a child wants you to do something and you wonder about it, they will give you a cue. You can't expect it, but it's likely. And also, when you wonder, you reserve them for the moments they're needed, because if you wonder all throughout sessions, it's the boy that cried wolf scenario. In other words, if you wonder and wonder and wonder and wonder, it becomes such a standard part of the dialogue that kids will tune it out, and then it loses its efficacy. So if you're wondering all session long, it's easy to just tune that out, start to ignore it. But if you only do it rarely, oh, I wonder what the robber's supposed to say. I wonder how mom puts the kids to bed. I wonder whatever the scenario is that you need the cue. It has more impact because they're not used to hearing that phrase. So we temper the frequency, we reserve it for necessary moments, and it's always for clinical relevance. Okay, so that's the wonder statement. Now, the whisper technique. The whisper technique allows us to actually ask a question. Again, we use it sparingly and with intention. But sometimes we can use the whisper technique to have a conspiratorial or allied kind of vibe to the play. And you can whisper the question. That's the only time you're going to ask a question, is if you whisper it and it's part of the dialogue of play. So let's go back to the earlier scenario. You're going to be the pirate and I'm going to be the treasure hunter, and we're both trying to find the money. You can wonder, or you can say, what happens next? So now you've whispered a question, but because it's been whispered, it seems like you're on the same team. It seems like you're in this together. It has that, like I said, that secret conspiratorial, I need you to, give me the next step here. It has that vibe to it. And so when you whisper, you can in fact ask a question, but you again are waiting for those moments where it's necessary. I'm not going to whisper something to a child just because. It needs to be when I'm hoping for more information. Often, sometimes you can whisper that you don't know what to do. It doesn't always have to be a question. So a lot of times if a kid says, here, grab the alligator puppet and I'll grab the shark puppet and, we're going to do a puppet show. You could use whisper to ask a question, or you could say, I'm not sure what the alligator does. And that serves the same purpose. So it doesn't always have to be a question, but when you whisper, it has that playful tone to it where the child is going to have to whisper back an answer. So for me, I really, for some reason, I don't know, my brain does not seem to want to keep these separate. And I've actually had a hard time in this episode not whispering my wonder. I had to force myself not to do it. I almost always fuse them together. So I whisper my wonder statement, and you can keep them separate, but I tend to go, I wonder what happens now. So it just works out that way for me. My brain wants to have them as one unit. They are separate, but notice they are purposeful. They are clinically necessary. You don't use it very often, and it preserves that the children can stay in their emotions and their experience instead of being dragged up into their heads and having to cognitively think about what's going on and or answer questions. All right, so hopefully you have a sense of whisper and wonder now, all going back to there are a limited number of responses in a playroom, and wonder statements and whisper technique are two of the ones that help us gain what we need to not disrupt the child's play. Because the last thing we want is a kid says, you be the pirate, and we just go off on our pirate spiel, and it completely derails or distracts or disrupts what the child had in mind. We never want to have that dynamic unfold in a playroom. So the whisper and wonder allow us to avoid that. All right, y'all. I love you. I hope that you have a great week. We'll talk again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and resources, please go to www.playtherapypodcast.com.